Alrighty, happy Friday, everybody. This article is coming from Euro Weekly News and written by Lottie Verrier. Published April 9th, 2026. A heartwarming charity event is set to transform an ordinary April weekend into something far more meaningful, and it's one animal lovers won't want to miss. In the coastal town of Denia, which is in Spain, I believe, a local animal shelter is closing its doors for a vibrant community-led celebration that blends food, music, and compassion, all in support of abandoned dogs. Taking place on April 19th, this feel-good gathering promises more than just a fun afternoon. It's a chance to make a real difference. A Sunday plan with purpose. From 1 p.m., visitors will be welcomed to the grounds of a local animal shelter for an afternoon designed to bring people together while supporting a vital cause. The event runs for several hours, offering a relaxed, family-friendly atmosphere where guests can drop in, explore, and enjoy. Unlike traditional fundraisers, this is not a formal or structured event. Instead, it's a lively social experience where entertainment and generosity go hand in hand. Attendees can expect a buzzing environment filled with locals, families, and animal lovers, all united by a shared goal, helping vulnerable animals in need. No Spanish gathering would be complete without incredible food, and this one delivers. A giant paella and freshly prepared barbecue will take center stage alongside homemade cakes and refreshing drinks. It's the kind of laid-back dining experience that encourages people to linger, socialize, and soak up the atmosphere. Beyond the food, the event has been designed as a full sensory experience. Live music performances will provide the soundtrack to the evening, while a small market and raffle add an extra layer of excitement, especially for younger visitors. There's also a strong emphasis on community. Whether you arrive with friends, family, or even solo, the welcoming atmosphere makes it easy to connect with others and feel part of something bigger. One of the standout aspects of this event is its transparency. Every euro raised will go directly towards supporting the shelter's work, covering essentials such as food, veterinary care, and the daily upkeep for the dogs waiting to be rehomed. This clarity is key. For many people, knowing exactly how their contribution is used makes the experience more meaningful. Here, every plate of food purchased or raffle ticket bought directly translates into tangible support for animals that have often been abandoned or mistreated. It's a simple but powerful reminder that small actions can have a very big impact. The event is organized by APAD, a long-standing animal protection association in Denia dedicated to rescuing and caring for dogs in need. Their work extends far beyond sheltering animals. They provide medical treatment, rehabilitation, and, ultimately, help them find loving homes as well. Their role in the local community is essential. By stepping in where resources are often limited, they ensure that vulnerable animals are not forgotten. Events like this are crucial to keeping their operations running and raising awareness about responsible pet ownership. While the event offers plenty of entertainment, its deeper value lies in education and connection. For families, it's an opportunity to teach children about empathy, responsibility, and the importance of animal welfare. For others, it may even spark the decision to adopt. Seeing the dogs in person and learning about their stories can be a powerful experience. Turning a casual visit, into a life-changing moment. It's worthy adding to your calendar because in a world of busy schedules and digital distractions, events like this offer something refreshingly real. It's a chance to step outside, enjoy good food and music, and contribute to a cause that genuinely matters. Whether you're a dedicated animal lover or simply looking for a meaningful way to spend your Sunday, this Stania Charity Festival ticks all the boxes. Relaxed, social, and impactful. And who knows, you might just leave with more than great memories. Stories like this make me wish that we had more events like this in America. But like I said, this was published by Euro Weekly News by Lottie Verrier on April 9th. Alrighty, this next article comes from the Humane World for Animals blog. Here's a picture of a monkey. This was released on March 27th, 2026, and written by Kitty Block and Sarah Munson. A major roadblock to ending animal experiments is the lack of funding to develop technologies that can actually replace them. But last week, the National Institutes of Health helped close that gap. The U.S. government agency announced that it is investing more than $150 million to developing cutting-edge non-animal research methods that better simulate human biology without harming animals. This represents NIH's largest investment to date in non-animal methods. As the world's largest funder of biomedical research, NIH has the power to shape how research and testing dollars are spent, not just in the US, but around the world. Globally, an estimated 190 million cats, monkeys, mice, and other animals suffer in harmful experiments every year. The funding will be awarded to research teams across the U.S. and used to establish technology development centers that will create sophisticated non-animal methods for studying gynecological disorders, cardiac disease, neurological disorders, rare diseases, and other conditions, most of which are typically tested and experimented through animal research. And the centers will also focus on developing advanced non-animal tests that can assess how things from pesticides to laundry detergent can affect human health as well as the environment. Because animals and humans are so biologically different, animal experiments do a poor job of mimicking the human body. The result is that they are actually hindering, not advancing, science. For example, according to NIH, more than 90% of drugs that appear successful in animal tests go on to fail in human clinical trials. In contrast, cutting-edge alternatives use human data, tissues, and cells to create technologies like organs on a chip, 3D human tissue models, advanced human cell-based systems, computational models, and even AI-driven simulations based on how the human body actually works. This horrifying medical image is a monkey chair to be used at a defunct animal testing lab, or which was used. For decades, we've made the case that Congress and the government agencies should prioritize and increase funding for research and testing methods that don't rely on animals. And we secured congressional support through the federal appropriations process. We've also worked in collaboration with NIH to ensure that human-based research methods replace animal experiments for drugs and other products. This dramatic funding commitment is just the latest example of the work NIH has done to begin to phase out animal experiments in favor of sophisticated human-based techniques. Last April, the agency made the groundbreaking announcement that it would prioritize human-based research technologies and reduce the number of animal experiments funded by the agency. In May, NIH released that it had closed the last Beagle laboratory on its campus, a lab that carried out experiments on thousands of dogs. In July, NIH announced another shift toward non-animal methods, saying it would prioritize human-based technologies and models where scientifically valid and justified, and that funding opportunities will indicate a special emphasis on human-based approaches. In September, the agency launched a center dedicated to developing organoid technology that can replace animal experiments, with contracts totaling $87 million for the first 3 years. In February of this year, the Oregon Health and Science University entered into talks with NIH about the possibility of turning the Oregon National Primate Research Center, a federally funded research laboratory with nearly 5,000 monkeys, into a sanctuary. Over the last year, NIH and other U.S. government agencies have taken extraordinary steps forward for animals in laboratories. We're continuing to work with scientists, government agencies, legislators, companies, and animal advocates around the globe, and we'll keep doing this work until sophisticated technologies have made animal experiments obsolete. Kitty Block is the president and CEO of Humane World for Animals. Sarah Munson is president of the Humane World Action Fund. Once again, this was released on March 27th, 2026. All right, this next article is coming from pbs.org, written by Seth Borenstein, it appears, and published April 5th. Newly discovered fossils give scientists first look at the evolution of early complex animals. Washington. Newly discovered fossils have given scientists their first real glimpse of when Earth made a crucial transition from plants and unrecognizably simple animals to the complex creatures that took over the world and would eventually lead to us. And it happened millions of years earlier than researchers thought. More than 700 fossils found in southwestern China's Yunnan province offer a window into life from 539 million years ago. During the waning end of the Ediacaran period, a time of simple but strange animals that lived two-dimensionally in the oceans, never going up or down, researchers said. But a study in Thursday's journal Science said many of the fossils in this trove are remnants of more complex animals that lived three-dimensional lives, traveling up through the water and eating. Those are traits that had been thought to only spring to life at least 4 million years later in the Cambrian period, during what was called the Cambrian explosion of complex and recognizable animal life. This really is the first window we have into how basically the modern animal-dominated biosphere was formed and developed, and came through this weird Ediacaran transitional interlude, said co-author and paleontologist Frankie Dunn of the Museum of Natural History at Oxford University. We go from a two-dimensional world, and within the geological blink of an eye, animals have diversified. They're everywhere. They're doing everything, and they're changing biogeochemical cycles. They've changed the world. The new finds were a short distance from United Nations Chengjiang World Natural Heritage Site for other fossils in an exposure along the roadside that is not glamorous but has different layers that, quote, where you can literally walk through time, geological time, and a landscape, Dunn said. And one of those areas provides a snapshot where evolution brings forces together. In that spot, Dunn said, the group of fossils includes both bizarre examples of life that existed in earlier periods and disappeared, along with early examples of organisms that would evolve into modern animals. What's important in those more modern animals are that their bodies are mostly the same on the left and the right. Nearly all of the animal life on Earth now have similar features on the left and right side, as well as a head and an anus. Before the fossils discovered in China, scientists saw traces of this symmetric body type in fossil tracks, but not the critters themselves. Now we know what's making them, because we have these fossils for the first time, said study co-author Ross Anderson, also of Oxford's Museum of Natural History. I guess they were just assuming their symmetry before. That's interesting. Until now, there was a conflict in the field of paleontology. Genetic analysis of how fast traits mutated and evolved suggested that humans and starfish had their earliest common ancestor in the Ediacaran period, but the fossils or rocks weren't there to show it happening, Dunn said. It was called a debate of rocks versus clocks, she said. What our new fossil site tells us is that actually perhaps the rocks and the clocks are in closer agreement than we thought, Dunn said. Emily Mitchell, a paleontologist at the University of Cambridge who wasn't part of the research, said the new study makes a huge amount of sense because the Ediacaran contains animals. We know there must have been a transitional stage between them and the Cambrian fauna. But until now, we didn't really have any evidence of this. Some outside scientists, such as Jonathan Antcliffe at the University of Lausanne? I'm not sure where that is. Such as Jonathan Antcliffe at the University of Lausanne, questioned whether there's enough evidence to call these fossils of complex animals, but most experts contacted by the Associated Press at least felt that they were. Now that scientists know when this life explosion happened, they've got more questions and some theories. I'm really interested in understanding not just when it happened, which is interesting, but how it happened and why it happened the way that it happened, Dunn said. So whether there are feedbacks that we can disentangle between Earth and life or between life and life, Once you have Ediacaran on the seafloor, it is inevitable that you'll end up with something approaching... Is it inevitable that you'll end up with something approaching a Cambrian explosion? They're the kinds of questions that I find really interesting. End quote. Life on Earth started 3 billion years ago, but it took another 2.4 billion years before complex animals developed. Then they multiplied, diversified, and took over rapidly, Dunn said. That's probably because Earth had to build up oxygen levels high enough, and evolution had to kick in with genetic changes, said University of California at Berkeley paleontologist Charles Marshall, who wasn't part of the research. Marshall said that the Cambrian explosion was sudden because of the already rich developmental system that was in place. What fundamentally changed across this period is the way the animals on the planet interacted with each other, said Duncan Murdoch, curator of Oxford's museum, where many of the authors work. Once animals turned up and started eating each other and churning up the sediments, they changed the planet forever. And the planet that we live on is very much built on the foundations from the Ediacaran and Cambrian. This was written by Seth Borenstein, the Associated Press, and Associated Press journalist Subin Stars contributed from London, published by PBS. Alrighty, this next article is published by Manga Bay News, and was written by Liz Kimbrough, published April 9th, 2026. 24 new species were found in an ocean zone which is being eyed for battery metals mining. I'll hover over the key features bit for a minute. Feel free to pause while I do before I move on to the article. All right. Researchers pulled 24 tiny new creatures from a deep abyss in the central Pacific Ocean, some with long, spindly legs, and others with more squat, compact bodies. Some appeared to feed on the sediment itself, while others had large claws suggesting they prey on other creatures living in the mud. The discoveries, published in Zoo Keys, come from the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, CCZ, a roughly 6 million square kilometer or 2.3 million square mile expanse of seabed between Hawaii and Mexico. The newly described species are all amphipods, a diverse group of crustaceans. The shrimp-like creatures, most only about a centimeter long or less than half an inch, have evolved in the deep sea, some 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet below the surface and isolated for millions of years. Among the finds was a completely new superfamily, pardon my pronunciation, Mirabestioidea, and a new family, Mirabestidae. Representing previously unknown evolutionary lineages. If you imagine that on planet Earth, we know about carnivorous and mammals. We know that bears exist, and we know that the families of cat exists. It would be like first finding dogs. Tommy Horton, a researcher at the UK's National Oceanography Centre and co-lead of the study, told Inside Climate News. Wow, it's a whole new family of creatures. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And here's a collage of them. I'm just going to hover over it for a second because those are all sorts. Those are just fascinating little guys. Anyways, scientists collected the specimens by extracting large cubes of mud from the seabed, known as box cores, and hauling them up to a research ship. After washing and sieving the cores, researchers found a variety of amphipods nestled among the mud and metallic nodules. During a week-long taxonomy workshop at the University of Lodz in Poland, 16 scientists collaborated to describe the new species at a pace that would have been impossible working alone. The effort is part of the International Seabed Authority's 1,000 Reasons Project, which aims to formally describe 1,000 new deep sea species by the year 2030. Horton named a species in the new superfamily Mirabestia mazie after her daughter. Another species, Lepidoprecromyla, was named for a character in the video game Hollow Knight. Hey, my partner likes that game. Because both are just little arthropods trying to survive in total darkness, Horton said in a press release. That's sweet. It's estimated that there are around 5,600 species in the CCZ, but around 90% of these are undescribed. Eva Stewart, a deep-sea scientist at the UK National History Museum who contributed to the research, said in an article published by the museum. Anna Zazdzuska, a professor at the University of Lodz and co-lead of the study, told Inside Climate News that formally naming a species gives them a passport for living, allowing people and policymakers to recognize them as living entities worth protecting. At the current pace, researchers say the amphipod fauna of the eastern CCZ could be nearly fully cataloged within the decade, if the seabed is still intact by then. However, closing that knowledge gap has gained greater urgency as pressure grows to actually mine the seabed. The CCZ is studded with metallic nodules, potato-sized chunks of fused nickel, cobalt, copper, and other minerals, many of which are prized for their use in the production of batteries and green energy technologies. That makes the CCZ one of the most commercially coveted tracts of ocean on the planet. In January, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, finalized a rule allowing companies to apply simultaneously for exploration licenses and commercial recovery permits, streamlining what had been a two-step sequential process. The old two-step process required companies to first obtain an exploration license, conduct exploration, which includes scientific research and environmental data collection, and only then separately apply for a commercial recovery permit. The new consolidated process lets companies apply for both at the same time. The Metals Company, a Canadian mining firm, has since filed a new consolidated application covering roughly 65,000 square kilometers or 25,000 square miles of the CCZ, an area about twice the size of Belgium. In March, NOAA determined that TMC's application met regulatory filing requirements and could proceed to full review. Mining could have an ecological cost. A study published in December 2025 found that within the tracks left by a commercial mining machine during large-scale tests in the CCZ in 2022, the number of animals dropped by 37%, and the number of species, like the diversity, fell by 32%. We've just done 24 species, Horton told Inside Climate News, and that is a drop in the ocean, literally, of how much more we will have to describe. Oof. What a complex situation. They are racing the clock to protect those species. Once again, this was published by Mango Bay News and written by Liz Kimbrough, published the 9th of April, 2026. Since this is a mostly academic article, here are the academic resources we cite. You're welcome to follow up on your own. And that will be the end of today's episode. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I'll see you next week.